Okay, so like the previous table, but first maybe I introduce myself. My name is Vanessa Mardirossian. I'm co-organizer of the symposium with Fabienne Münch. I've been invited to participate in this great event like about 8 months ago. So I'm really proud to be here today and share all this expertise with all of you. So let me introduce you Fabienne. Fabienne Münch is the chair of the design department at Ohio State, University. Previously, she led international research partnerships in the Pritzker School of Molecular Engineering at the University of Chicago. And she was also the director of the School of Design at the University of Montreal from 2013 to 2017. She fosters new master degrees, interdisciplinary programs on campus, and forged new partnerships with schools in Europe and South America. Thank you. I'd like to introduce your panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. So after these amazing first two speakers and panelists, and the roundtable focused on the local scene in Quebec, we're going to travel, and I am thrilled to host these three panelists who all have an amazing international experience. So let's leave Turtle Island and fly west over the Pacific Island and meet Hiroko Takeda, who currently lives in Brooklyn, New York, but before that, her artistic journey began in Kyoto and Tokyo and was nurtured by the tradition of the Japanese folk craft movement, Bingei Onryu. Hiroko Takeda developed her skills by obtaining a master's degree in constructed textiles from the Royal College of Art in London. Her creations have graced prominent exhibitions worldwide, spanning North America, Europe, Asia, Australia, and have been commissioned by renowned architects and private collectors. As an artist in residence at the Joseph and Annie Albers Foundation, she has garnered esteemed accolades, including the International Textile Award in Tokyo, the ICFF Editors Award, and the Jack Larson Contemporary Textile Prize. If we keep going west, we fly over Asia to Europe and meet Estelle Bourdet and Marie Schumann. Estelle Bourdet grew up in Sweden and Switzerland, surrounded by family looms. She graduated in fine arts at the École Cantonale d'Art de Lausanne, ECAL, with textiles as her main medium. She experimented with textile techniques at the Hochschule Luzern, then moved to Sweden and immersed herself in traditional textile handicrafts at the School of Creative Work, Kapellgarden. As a hand weaver, she offers production, artistic designs, and consultancy on textiles and materials. Her work focuses on merging key ancestral knowledge with new trends in slow making and sustainable resources. And Marie Schumann is born in Offenbach, Maine. She earned her bachelor's degree studying textile design at the University of Applied Sciences in Hamburg and completed her master's degree at the Lucerne University of Applied Sciences in Arts. In addition to gaining insights into the world of Scandinavian colors and shapes, in Copenhagen, she spent time in Singapore on a working scholarship. She has exhibited in multiple places in Hyères, Venice, Vienna, as well as in Hamburg, Lucerne, Paderborn, Winterthur, and throughout Switzerland, including at the Museum für Gestaltung in Zurich. And she now lives and works in Zurich. So this roundtable, and I wanted to say that these three amazing designers have their work exhibited at the Centre du Design downstairs. So during the break, you're all welcome. For those who were not here yesterday, or even for those who were here yesterday and want to see it again, to see their work during the break or at the end of the day. So this roundtable focuses on the tension between tradition and innovation. And in the exhibition Textile Design Now, we have highlighted how textiles weave some sort of a spiritual and social bond between human beings from the four corners of the world. And how knowledge has been rooted in local tradition, customs, patterns, or prints, and indeed offer intergenerational and cultural historic links. But today, innovative techniques offer new opportunities for sharing traditional designs and offer new playgrounds for designers. So what unites these three creators is how they honor and reinterpret ancestral gestures. We talked a lot about gestures in the previous panel, and we'll continue on that path. Reinterpret ancestral gestures and techniques. So I'm going to start with the first question addressed to you all. In your respective work, you all have taken weaving to new heights. In fact, a closer look at your project highlights something you all have in common: a very innovative approach to deconstruct and reconstruct. And I would like to hear from each one of you if you could elaborate on this construction and reconstruction. So whoever wants to go first.
Hello. Yes, so in my work, my inspiration comes mostly from my Swedish heritage. So in Sweden, the ragrugs are very, like, it's a cultural symbol and in every homes, and I think it's the same in a lot of other countries in Europe and outside of Europe, of course. And I must say that I started weaving, like, it was my main inspiration, and today I kind of try to deconstruct these techniques, and I try to take, like, come with my own history, or to add something to it, and to create maybe a tension between those old fabrics and those old aesthetics by adding something more of my time. And the tension is also created with colors, so using techniques that are actually very old. They maybe tend to they have this kind of vintage aesthetic, and it's also interesting today to use this aesthetic and to try to also continue it, but bring something new to it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Hiroko. Thank you for this opportunity. My background is Japanese folk craft movement that is happening early 19th century. That is spotlighting people's everyday life. So they are kind of denying decorative art. It's more like a real beauty comes from people's everyday life. Then more like a real beauty comes from function, and function creates beauty. So that philosophy is my background. So then naturally, I've been out from my country for more than 20 years. So I don't realize, but I realize now I'm deeply involved with that kind of philosophy or idea. So there are lots of things to construct that method we use in Japan, and one very known technique called is sakiori. I don't know if you guys heard. That is old fabric they tore and make strips and weave in and create totally new fabric and use again. Or like a zanshi weave. Zanshi is a leftover thread, and I saw even like this much of small lengths of thread. They just weave in as a weft. Weft is vertical yarn, and create something new, totally new. So my approach, what I'm showing here downstairs, is I use this leftover material from all my past project and making strand and weave into that. But also the inspiration is also related to this Japanese folk craft movement that farmers in the countryside, they, it's called mino. There's a rain gear called mino. It's a farmer create this rain gear for their farming. It has a beautiful, like a long straw strand, and they weave in the body part and have some kind of embroidery or something, show their identity. And it's just like a functional but very beautiful. So the downstairs I'm showing the chair is a collaboration with an industry designer, furniture designer. But I wanted to bring that part to that and combine. And also the seating part is commercially made fabric. It's just in the factory. But by breaking that fabric, and I took the yarn from there and weave into my this strand panel, that I feel like something making bridge over and connecting to what do I say? It's kind of breaking attention of industrial material and bring into the hand weaving world and create something new.
Yeah, hello and thank you. And maybe it's nice to connect to this, because I would say, so if you talk about the industrial fabric that you kind of deconstructed and wove again or reconstructed again, I think I use mainly industrial machines, jacquard machines that I weave with, and that also the final piece is done on. And I would say the deconstruction happens on that machine. So sometimes I really have to hack the machine to make it work. So I would insert parts, I would change settings, I would also manually put some weights on different parts so that the machine is actually able to do it, because with what I do, I push the limits of this industrial machine, and that is maybe the deconstructive part about it. But in general, the construction, I also like to think about the architecture of it anyway. So because I see a weaving basically as the structure that is also limiting you, because you have this freaking warp and you cannot like work really freely in space. And that's also a tension that I really like to have, the construction, that you also sometimes I'm fighting against it, but also loving to work with it basically, because you have this limit. Whereas, you have it with knitting or with a free thread or with a sewing, you don't have this limit of the construction, and that's also super interesting. And then metaphorically, I'm also thinking that what I work on is really also historically. I mean, I'm using the machines that are standing in this mill since a long time, and I'm using them, or they have been used differently, but the basic 90-degree crossing of threads has not changed. And then I'm building on Swiss textile history, and I'm using materials that have come across the world. So it's kind of, also maybe following this thread and trying to reconstruct and understand what is inside the whole piece that I'm creating. Is it, I can like decode, as you said, the text of it, like trying to understand the heritage that you're building on is also part of it, I would say.
My next question is going to be about technology, and in this world of very sophisticated technologies, you know, we know about 3D looms and digital assistance to creation. How would you see this digital technology influencing or not influencing your creations, and why? So if you embrace them, or if you rather stay away from them, could you tell us why?
Yeah, I think it's funny because I'm working on a floor loom, like a very traditional Swedish limåkra floor loom. And I think that when I started with weaving, my main idea was to actually weave on a traditional loom, and it kind of stopped there. And I'm sometimes wondering, should I challenge myself and maybe go and take a course on a what's the name again of those big machines? TC2, yeah. Like, should I do that? And there is something that, no, it doesn't. Like, it stops there. And I don't know really why, but I think it's also actually the challenging part, the contrainte, that I actually really like in my work, because, as you say, we have to stick to this warp, this really like horizontal and like vertical and horizontal grid, and that's where I like my work to like happen. It's actually challenging myself in using this floor loom and not another one, and be able to actually create my patterns with only 4 frames. And I find it challenging, and maybe it's a simple way of seeing it, or a bit like too traditional, like conservative. Could you say that? I don't know, but yeah, I'm seduced by it, and I think I will stick to it.
Yes, I like traditional loom and tradition too, and I like all structure that's made by floor loom, and I use that too. But also I have 2 computer Adobe room in my studio, and which is great because I can switch the structure like 1 second. So switch, and change a little bit, adjust. It's not super high technology, but I really appreciate this computer Adobe. And without that, my creation is really limited. Yeah.
Yes, well, I started weaving. Also, I remember my bachelor professor, she was really actually surprised when I ended up with a weaving diploma. And she was like, I didn't expect you to weave, because I'm super impatient. And so I had to do the hand weaving, mamma mia. It was like, and then I finally like enjoyed when I could find a thread as a drawing line. So I could just, follow it and see the grid as my web page. And then when I found out about the jacquard technology, I mean, for my impatient part, it was just a joy, because it seems in the beginning so much faster, because the machine is doing all your body work, so all your physical work is extended, kind of. But then also you have this detachment, because I start with the computer. I have the pixels. Every pixel in the file is 1 thread, and then there is the machine who translates it into material, and this is for me, this is a very interesting part when I work with the computer, where I'm in front of the screen, and then something materializes through those pixels that I sort of code bindings to and choose materials, and that is something where I really where it's getting really manual again, sort of, and where also I see the digital as a sketch, and it's it's an opener to this machine. It's kind of the basis coding, and then I start and I go backwards and forwards. So I start something, I sample, go back to the computer. Also understanding, what I did in the computer changes when I see it in material. So it's really, this part about digital world, material world, kind of going backwards and forwards. And then also, sort of this leads also to a certain aesthetic that can go backwards and forwards.
My next question will actually touch a little bit what Michael mentioned about when she's weaving, right? And that she can stay 8 hours in front of her loom. What's going on in your head when you spend so many hours weaving? Is it a therapy? Is it a way to just escape from the reality of the world, or is it actually to ingrain you more into the reality of the world? Can you share with us what's going on?
Yeah, I could really relate when you said that, because as Marie, I'm very impatient. Like, it's actually crazy that this medium chose me, because I am always saying that the weaving chose me. I didn't choose it in a way. And I think it's almost gets a bit spiritual, but I don't know. There is something that it chose me because I'm impatient and because I have to learn things through it. So I think the skills and the learnings that I get through the years now with the weaving, I can totally apply them to my private life, to like socially with friends or with family members, or I don't want to go too deep in that because it's going to become weird, but and I think it's definitely meditative, and there is something also when I start a project. First, sometimes I can even be a bit bored. I'm like, I will have to weave that. But then, when I actually start it, and I see that it's working, because I kind of also hacked the analog, kind of, in a way also, it's so satisfying. And you just can't stop. And then it becomes physical. And I always say that I have a relation with my loom, because I talk to it when it doesn't work well, or so it's crowded there in my studio, even if I'm alone.
People ask me, wow, you do weave, must be so meditative, nice and peaceful. But reality is not really. It's like climbing a mountain almost. Just trying to see the goal on top of mountain. So maybe this. It's just like a struggle, and of course some moment when I put some thread and this is it. And sometimes, occasionally, has something makes me really happy. But most of the time, it's always thinking, struggling. It's like almost a pain. But that turns to joy after. So, good and bad, both.
Yeah, exactly the same. So it can be. I'm starting to search for something, so I really want to, and then I arrive, and then I see the first, okay, give back again. So it's a lot of, again, patience. Then it's a lot about trial and error, which is basically process, which is what life is about. I also found out. But I mean, this is something you take home as well. And then you go back again and you learn about, like, also being stubborn about something, but also letting go. It's, at some point you also have to, I mean, sometimes the machine is telling me something, sometimes the material is talking to me, like, you should also listen. And I learned if I listen, it's actually quite, it's something that I didn't know before. If I listen, I find it out, and it can bring me somewhere. And I would say this is.
I love when you say the material talks back to you. So tradition, innovation, verbal, cultural messaging. How in your role within the profession, but also within society as women, you're transmitting something with your weaving, right? And how do you see that perhaps you are a carrier of this ancestral heritage that you all have in your DNA, if I can say? How do you see yourself as transmitter, water carrier of this? Is it playing a little piece? Is it kind of a calling that you feel you have to do? So tell us about your relation to your connection to social groups, or tribes, or ancestors that you can make visible, obviously, to a broader public. Difficult question, I know.
Now, I think I feel responsible.
Mm-hmm.
I studied at this school called Capellagården in Sweden, which was founded in the 60s by Siv and Carl Malmsten, two designers, renowned designers in Sweden. And this school teaches woodworking, fine woodworking, textile, ceramics, and gardening. And it was two years. And there, like, it's not only the school, like, it's not only the techniques, it's basically an old farm. It's kind of the Black Mountain College of Sweden. So we were living on the campus, like all the houses with the other students also, and so on. And their tradition was very, like, we learned the old ways, like, of weaving. And it was weaving, it was knitting, printing, like every sort of, like, all kind of textile techniques. And when I was there, I realized that, it's very important for us to be here. This school it started in the 60s, and we are still learning the same techniques, traditional weaving techniques that they were teaching back then. And it's still there. And there are not so many of those institutions, I think, left. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when I actually realized that, okay, I'm gonna carry on like a kind of a responsibility of, and then of course it's not also, I don't like to be too serious about it also, because then it kind of sacralized, which I think it's important, but you still need to have, like, everything have a distance to things. But and for me, I started also to give some workshops and to take, like, further those techniques. And when I see that students, they get it, like, it's that's why you call it like this, and this is this technique, and that's also so satisfying to see that actually, we are able to, like, give it further. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
what I'm doing is maybe very little as a human, but recently, well, before I'm just working in my studio with my little assistant, and school asked me to take some student for the internship or externship. I said, no, we don't have a space and time or anything. But this year, during the COVID, I started taking students from it's called New School in New York. They have a new master's degree in MFA program in textile. So they are young and so motivated from all over the world. But I realized they don't know the weaving technique. They have a nice, very great concept. Yeah. So I start teaching them Japanese technique. It's very probably tedious, but they really enjoy it. And I saw their work after. They're using that technique to their work. Then also, they showed me their work, what they make in the school, and they use they had a class in bioplastic. What is it? It's like, I learned from them too. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, as long as I have a time and energy, I want to keep young people to my studio and exchange more.
Yes, so I remember going to the schools and learning about weaving and the traditional way that they taught in Germany and in Switzerland is very similar, and I noticed that this was actually quite hard for me because it was really, this is the right way to do it and this is not. So for me it was quite a hard time because I didn't understand why there is kind of this right, or I didn't also want to understand that this is right or wrong, so for me it was more about trying to kind of do it in a different way, but still being able to, I really appreciate what I learned, but it was also really important to grow out of that or to use it in a different sense, and then also now understanding that how connected it is also to a lot of textile artists in Switzerland in the 60s. There was the Biennale de la Tapisserie in Lausanne, as I heard also in Quebec. So I don't know, I had to distance myself for a while because it was just too much of I don't know what it was, maybe of how this had to be. And then now understanding, slowly moving, also seeing this and sort of again, deconstructing it. I would say this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when we think of all the women designers and artists that Christina celebrates in the exhibition before us, I think we're very fortunate that during our lifetime, we have the opportunity to make these connections beyond borders and to be able to see a little bit of the impact that this field has on society and on, as you said, on the next generation, and transmit that and publicize it with pictures and all sorts of digital media that these women from the previous generation had much harder time to reach out. So here's my next and last question. Our symposium theme is Design Beyond Craft. What's the future of craft?
Wow. Future of craft. I think it's so hard. Maybe someone wants to start.
Any order is fine.
Well, I think it's kind of here, and it's also maybe to we were talking about the gestures, and it has always been there, and it will always be here. I think it's, but I think also the let's say the contextualization or the metaphors that are attached to it, they will change, and they will maybe free a little bit or open up. That would be, I would appreciate that. But your body, your hands, the materials you have around you, the combination, it's all there, and it will, I think, always be there. And then we have the connection. Well, I really work on the digital connection, and it's also very much there. So, yeah, I don't know if this is, I'm talking more about the present, but...
Well, I hear news like AI taking over our brain and we won't make anything, but I think we like to use our hand and we feel always joy creating something. So I think technology will support us, or it will be only the tool. And like I just said, bioplastic, something new material might come to our life, but still I think we will continue to create something and feel joy about it.
Yeah, I think the good thing about craft and the fact that it has been here since ever, and today it's that we can look back and see what has been done and continue what has been done in a good way, and maybe stop and not reproduce what has been done in a bad way. It's maybe a bit naive, and I think that, as you say, craft and working with our hands, it will always be needed. I mean, we all need to be occupied. And as Hiroko said, I think the technology will be there and it will assist us. But we will always need this kind of very physical and close relation to material. And I'm wishing to see like more and more innovation in terms of the things that is being done in terms of innovation. It's like it's really crazy, and it's just like very exciting to think about the future. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we have time to open up to questions from the audience. So over there, yes.
Thank you for a lovely discussion. I have one question, because you were talking a lot about sort of these bodily experiences that you experienced during weaving, and it seems like you have really intimate relationship with your instruments. And designers often talk about the intuition that you sort of feel in your body when you're working, one is right and one is wrong. And you were also talking a bit about that, Estelle, that stops there, or that there's this impatience always present. So what is the main guide that guides you through the process?
My intuition. It's maybe those, how do you say contraintes in English? Voilà. It's because I think I try to hack the idea of the project that I want to do. Like, I have a result in my mind, but then I will always try to take it further. And this is something that is very stimulating, and that makes me continue. But I must say also that I work with my computer. I may be very like old-fashioned with my old loom and my traditional loom, but then all my sketching is done on my computer. So all my illustrations and patterns are made on my computer. So then this is also a way for me to go back. I always go back. You were talking about the switch on and off. I often go back to my computer and also work on changing maybe colors or shapes, and at some point when the weaving is done, when I take it off the loom, I'm always very unsatisfied. Like, it looks ugly. So it takes maybe a week or a few days to actually, I leave it in a corner of the studio, and then I go back to it and I look at it, and then it kind of grows on me. But so yeah, I don't know really if there is a point where it stops, where I'm like, oh, this is finished. I don't know. Because also when I see my piece here downstairs, I'm already thinking about the next thing I'm gonna do. So one piece brings you to another, so it's kind of a continuity. So yeah, it never stops.
Yeah, it's same. It never stops, and before I start weaving, sometimes I do make small swatches and put everywhere and think, just start everything. I have to have a big vision and have to have a passion to realize this work. Without that, always doesn't go anywhere. It's just pain only. So to create the vision first in my head or sketch, whatever, so just keep going. And sometimes shouldn't do much, but tension off and see what I wore from a distance, or take a picture and some sketch, add to it. Yeah, I do everything. Sometimes turn it and see what's back going on. And before I go home, I took picture of room and home. I think about like space, what I felt. So I do everything to create something what I want.
Yeah, I was also thinking about several layers while this being is on the loom. So I mean, there's the intuition side about it. Then there's also what I read before and what the project will be about. And then it's maybe more an intellectual interest that is also there. Then there's the technical interest that is there. So I'm trying to understand, why is this binding not working, and then there's also, I mean, maybe more this, where am I coming from, this idea of, so I'm in this culture, this is all then the reflections that are not happening maybe in the moment, but are there when I'm home. And also maybe not, it takes also a lot of time, as you said, from piece to piece, something changes and then you step back and you see it. So I would say it's a lot of layers at the same time that are maybe not as important all at the same time, but they happen next to each other, and sort of kind of create their own weaving as to stay in the beautiful metaphors that we have in the textile, actually.
This goes back to weaving words that you were talking about, Michael. Yes?
Thank you so much, both the three of you. I have a question, if I understood correctly, Hiroko. I have a question for you and another for Marie. If I understood correctly, you talked about the Japanese tradition where function creates beauty, whereas Immanuel Kant says the exact opposite. So I would like to know how you relate or not to this in your work. And for Marie, you mentioned that while you're working, at some point you have to listen. And that really caught my attention, because we always often think about touching and tactility of textile, but listening, I was really curious, and I'd like to hear you to develop on that, if it's possible. Thank you.
You want to go first, Hiroko? Yeah.
Okay. Yes, when I was younger student, I stick to create something functional textile, because that was my education background too. And I really like that. It's so beautiful, not decorative. It has some like real beauty, really, I thought. And I was doing that, but once I got out from Japan and I learned more culture and approach, and I realized now I'm making not like a direct functional textile, but I found that it's emotionally function. If the piece is emotionally function, that's what I want to do too. Don't need to use like every day, but when people see, or when I see, something tells you that is a, I thought, function. But technique-wise, yes, I use a lot of technique from that culture and background still now. I don't know if I answered the question.
Yes, and about the listening, yeah, I would say in the process of creating, it is, I mean, I start with a vision, with an idea, with an image, with a concept, and then there's not only me. We had the discussion about co-creation, about being embedded, and then there's the different layers that kind of all work together. And with the material in specific, and technically speaking, if I listen in this sense, I can really see what the material is kind of enjoying and what it's not enjoying. So if I see, it's making a lot of bumps, and so that means something's happening with the tension. If I listen to this, or I'm like, no, I want it exactly like this, this is something like that. If I listen and then maybe push the bumps, I'm like, this is actually, it's doing it, but maybe I can push it then and use this and try to sort of embrace that. And once of a sudden, I can create different structures that I haven't thought of before, that I couldn't think of before, because the material has its own rules, kind of. But also, I mean, not letting it just completely be what it wants to be, because there's also a way of we work together, so we have to find an agreement in some senses. But this is somehow like, I learn a lot before, like when I'm at the loom, basically, seeing technically what is possible. Yeah.
We have time for another one?
Sure, yes, please.
Thank you so much to all of you. Wonderful work. Like you, Estelle, I grew up in a house with looms all my life. Even to this day, my mother, who's 90-year-old, weaves every day. And when I call her every week, she tells me about how many threads she's broken and how many mistakes she's made and how she tries to correct them. And to go back to Fabienne's last question, what is Textile Beyond Craft? I listen to you, to the three of you, and I get the sense that you work with those mistakes and you celebrate them in a way. When we unpack your piece, for example, Estelle, we were trying to figure out what was the front and what was the back. And for those of you, when you go to the exhibition room and you look at it, in the back you have to look at the red thread, and there's a little nut. And the little nut is where you see the work with the hand, the presence of the hand. And it's something similar with Hiroko. You work with your hand and you deconstruct this fabric and you give it something very personal that makes it imperfect and yet absolutely perfect. And Marie, when you speak about how you tweak the machine and you push it to the limit, again, I get a sense that this imperfection of the technology or the technique brings your work to a completely different level. So I wonder if this is something that you consider in your work, the role of imperfection or these little mistakes that may inspire the next step in your work.
Yeah, I think it's a way of, as you say, celebrating it when, instead of making something, try to hide something, make it obvious. And that should be like this in a lot of different fields. And for instance, for my piece here, exactly there is like the little knots on the back. And I'm kind of disappointed on myself that I didn't make it more obvious, because it was, I did it, and then when I took it down, I was like, there is something here that doesn't really seduces me, and how can I do? And yeah, it's a bit of a regret that I didn't make it more obvious, but as I was saying before, it's a like process that goes on. So it will be something that I will take with me for the next piece. But yeah, definitely celebrate the little mistakes, and actually, like, they become the témoin of the hand. And I think it's also very important, also in the relation to innovation and the new technologies. We always see things that are always so perfect. And I think when I'm threading my threads, like at the beginning of my process, and I do a mistake, I'm always at the end, I'm like, oh, I made a mistake. And I'm almost happy that I did it, because I will keep it. Yeah.
Yeah, usually, but almost all the time, the work I finish is not what I imagined before, but I just accept and just let it go, and I start liking it after a while. And also, I like something accidental, result happening that leads to next creation too. I was last time when I back home in Japan, I need to clean my old work, because storage we have to clean, and I found the first weaving piece I wove in college, and a lot of threading mistakes. But I thought, wow, this is amazing. I brought back to Brooklyn and looking at it's. Yeah, I get a lot of inspiration from that piece, or like amateur weavers weaving. It's yeah.
Yes, I would also relate to it. For me, it's again trial and error, learning from the errors, but also bringing them maybe to perfection, letting go. It's a kind of in this, but learning from what happens and bringing this to a different level. Yeah.
I also remember one thing when I was at the Luzern Hochschule, the teachers always told me, learn the rules to know, how do you say that? Learn the rules to break them. And I was like, there is no rules. Or at least those are my rules. And yeah, I'm fine with learning them, but that's your way of seeing it. And then after, I will interpret it as I want. But I kind of didn't accept this thing about rule, about that I had something to follow.
This is great. I just want to capture a few things you said, particularly for the students who are in the room, so you can think about it. And that will be our conclusion. You didn't choose weaving, but weaving chose you. So there's somewhere a very profound way to relate to what's going to be your futures as a student. My weaving moment is pain that turns into joy. I think that was really a very nice insight. So we just talked about, thanks to your question, Louise, about mistakes and how mistakes are actually the results of trial and error. And that sometimes it's also about letting go, so accepting the mistakes, and the mistakes become the witnesses of the hand, which ties into the questions about technology. And what I heard is gesture has always been there and will always be. And new materials come to our life, but we will always continue to make with our hands. The role of women and men, humans, who weave is to continue what has been done in a good way and try to not reproduce what has been done in a bad way. And I'd like this to be the closing remark. Thank you so much to the three of you. It was a wonderful moment. Very insightful.